Welcome to my SEC Power Rankings for Week 5, and we had a crazy day yesterday in SEC football. If you're a fan of Alabama, Kentucky, and Oklahoma, just off the top of my head, you got to be really happy this morning with the results of the game. It was just a crazy day yesterday in college football. Some really, really good football. If you were watching these football games, you were entertained. But anyway, without further ado, let's go through these power rankings 16 to 1 that I have come up with. And the first one is Mississippi State. I will say they played valiantly and they lost. They didn't play horrible. They had around 150 yards rushing at Texas, which that's a good Texas defense. It played really, really well. They played respectful. They didn't get really blown out. I thought this game would be really ugly because you really have possibly the best team in the SEC going against the worst team in the SEC. But so I will say, Mississippi State fans, you have to be pretty proud of your team going down to Texas and playing pretty respectfully. At number 15, I've got Auburn. Man, Auburn, if you're an Auburn fan, you must have to say to yourself, do we have any good luck at all? You know, it even goes back to last year. It's just like they can never catch a break. Outgained Oklahoma by 200 yards, played a perfect, flawless game, and then Peyton Thorne threw the interception return for a TD, and they lost 27 to 21. This team they're playing so hard, and they played so well yesterday to lose that game. The missed field goals, just everything. It would be frustrating to be an Auburn fan. So, I mean, in many aspects, I think they're better than 15, but I just have to put them there because they just don't know how to win, and they don't know how to close games out. Number 14, Florida. They were off this week. They got a monster game next week against UCF. They really need this win because coming up on the schedule after UCF is Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia. If they want to get to a bowl game, they're going to definitely have to win this game against UCF, and it's at home. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully they took advantage of this off week, got better, worked on some things because Florida has just a horrendous schedule coming up. Number 13, Vandy. They're off this week. This is a Vandy team that's much, much improved from last year. They lost a heartbreaker last week to Missouri, and they got Bama coming up this week. So, you know, with all those things being said, they're not going to beat Bama, but there's some opportunities down the road that maybe they can beat some opponents. I only see one guaranteed win, which is I think is against Ball State, but they have I think they play Auburn and South Carolina and some other games where they could get a win. Even Kentucky's a possibility. So Vandy could sneak in there and get a bowl game if some things go right, but a lot of things will have to bounce their way if they want to do that. But they are much improved this year. Arkansas, they just can't get out of their own way. I got them at number 12. Should have won the game against A&M. They kind of owned the box score. They had more total yards and all that good stuff. Taylor Green, he had a decent game, but he turns the ball over too much. That's been a common theme with him this year. He's just turning the ball over too much. They should have beat Oklahoma State, but there was turnovers and penalties. They also had a lot of penalties in this game. They had 75 yards worth of penalties. So, you know, Arkansas has got a good team, but they're going to have to get out of their own way if they're wanting to do something in the SEC this year. They got Tennessee next week, so they have a tall order in front of them. Tennessee has the best defense in the SEC, in my humble opinion, especially after watching Georgia and Alabama play. I think they definitely have the best defense. So Arkansas, can they muster up enough points against Tennessee to win? We'll see. Number 11, Kentucky. At one time, just a couple weeks ago, I had Kentucky dead last in these power rankings. I got them all the way up to number 11, and I could even see myself putting them even higher. But Kentucky has done a 180 this year. They lost at just a horrible game to South Carolina where they could not have played worse. But they almost beat Georgia, should have beat Georgia, and then they go to Ole Miss, who's number 6 in the country. Don't have any turnovers, control the clock, and win this game. This was just a monster win for Kentucky. It was something they very, very badly needed. And now they got 3 very winnable games coming up. So I think they've got a bye week next week, I think, and then they've got three winnable games. They got to play Vanderbilt, Auburn, Florida. These are all games they can win, and they're probably going to be favored. If they can win all those games, they're definitely going to be probably in the top 20, and they'll be going to play at Tennessee. And right now, I don't think anybody wants to play Kentucky with the way that their defensive front seven is playing, and even their secondary is good. So Kentucky's playing at a very high level right now, and they have took two teams down to the wire, winning one and losing the other. So if you're a Kentucky fan, you have to be excited. At number 10, South Carolina. This team is much better than I thought they were in the preseason. Offensively, they're getting better every single week. They've had Sellers out, their starting quarterback, and they got their backup coming in there, and he's played really, really well. He's a dual threat quarterback. South Carolina is, in my opinion, a top 25 team. They should be undefeated right now. I think their backup quarterback's Robbie Ashford, but I could be wrong. But anyway, he's a decent quarterback, and they have two decent quarterbacks right now at South Carolina. That's good to have, two quarterbacks with experience. But they should be undefeated. The officials stole a game from them against LSU, and I think South Carolina is a team you don't want to play right now. Just completely annihilated Akron 50-7. They've got Ole Miss coming to their place next week, and I'm telling you, they don't have a good opportunity to beat Ole Miss. I think they've got a great opportunity to beat Ole Miss. I think South Carolina could definitely win that game. And, man, if they can beat Ole Miss next week, you want to talk about a huge, huge, huge thing for their program. At number 9, I have A&M. Big win over Arkansas. They were outplayed in many aspects of this game, but they forced 3 turnovers. Marcel Reed is still at quarterback. This is their backup quarterback. Now they have 2 solid quarterbacks. When Connor Wegman comes back from injury, they are running the ball effectively, but they cannot throw the football. But they're still getting wins. Huge props to them. They have a monster game next week against Missouri, who will be a top 10 team. If they can win that game at home, A&M's going to have some serious momentum on their side. Huge bounce back for them after they, lost the first game of the year to Notre Dame. So A&M has showed some resiliency and played really, really well. So A&M fans, I think you got some serious momentum on your side right now. Number 8, Oklahoma. Man, they were thoroughly whipped in this game and still won this game. They were outgained by over 200 yards. But Oklahoma, they were. If you saw the injury report on them, they had almost, I think, their top 5 receivers out. They had some defensive guys out. It was a hodgepodge lineup that they kind of had to put together, and they still won this game. They were down double digits there in the fourth quarter and came back and won, come together. This is just a huge victory for Oklahoma. This was a game they had to have, and they got it. So Oklahoma, I would be very, very happy. It's hard to go into Auburn and win that game. I had Oklahoma losing this game in the preseason, so going down there and winning that game was huge. LSU at number 7. I really don't know what to think of this team, but offensively, I think they're pretty darn good, and they've got a good quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier threw for over 400 yards. He threw 2 TDs. It seems like offensively they're getting a little bit better every single week, and I think they are a pretty solid SEC team right now. They can put up some points, it's if you defensively, if you're out of position or if you're caught in a blitz, they can really take advantage of that and put some points on the board. So LSU at number 7. Number 6 is Missouri. They were off this week. They got A&M next week. I hope they fix some of the issues that Brady Cook was having. He has not looked like himself this year, but I think they got a monster game against A&M, and I would not even be surprised if A&M's favored in that game. Missouri's had a lot of issues this year closing out games. They've won the games, but they've just had to hold on for dear life. So they better look better this week if they want to beat A&M. Number 5, Ole Miss. This was a huge loss for them. They lost at home to Kentucky. Now, Kentucky's not a horrible team, but you have to beat Kentucky. Jackson Dart kind of got exposed in this game, I think. He looked lost a lot. He was inaccurate at times. and they got a little bit exposed. I think Ole Miss was everybody was kind of touting them, me included, and I think they're just a little bit overrated. Now that's not saying they can't get into the college football playoffs, but they're not part of the upper echelon of the SEC right now, in my opinion. I think there is a difference between them and the top four right now. But we'll see what happens defensively. I will say I think Ole Miss is better than they have been in the past. They limited Kentucky in a lot of different situations, but they allow Kentucky to get some really third and longs, fourth and long situations that if they would have just stopped that, they would have won the game. But anyway, offensively, they got a little bit exposed against a good defense. At number 4, I have Georgia. They were down 28-0 and took the lead late in the fourth quarter. Could have won this game. There's a lot of negatives and there's a lot of positives if you're a Georgia fan from this game. Negatives first, you gave up over almost 600 yards of offense to Alabama. And I don't care if that's the Chiefs. You can't allow 600 yards of offense. You got to be better than that if you're Georgia. They just looked lost. They just did not look like they wanted to be there when the game started out. They looked like they were sleepwalking. And I really feel like Georgia was just not well coached in this game to start this game. They were just out of position. I feel like Alabama out-coached them and they out-schemed them to start this game. Now, that being said, Georgia did a heck of a job coming back and was even up in the fourth quarter. Some of the positives about this is something that I have been harping on is what's going to happen with Georgia's passing game, the receivers. Well, they had 3 receivers, in my opinion, that really stepped up and played well. Dylan Bell, Arian Smith, and Dominic Lovett had really, really good games. You have to feel better about your receiver room. Now, Georgia still can't run the football, which I've not said that about Georgia, and I don't know when. But they're really struggling to run the football. It doesn't help them that Tate Ratledge is out, and he's their best offensive lineman. So I do think they'll probably get a little bit better. But this is an issue. They're not a good running team right now. And I think that's going to cost them at least another loss down the line, their inability to run the ball consistently. Number 3, Tennessee, I dropped them 1. This week. It wasn't anything they did. I just thought one of the teams here in Alabama just has the more impressive resume so far, so I dropped Tennessee. They got to play Arkansas next week. That's not going to be a cakewalk. Arkansas has the possibilities if they check every box, that they could upset Tennessee. Taylor Green is an issue. If you let him get outside the box, make some throws, he can cause you a lot of problems. Tennessee has to take care of the football, play really well, play a clean game, but they should beat Arkansas next week. But I got them at number 3. Number 2, Texas. Now, they didn't look the best, right? This is the 3rd game that Quinn Ewers has not started. They've had Arch Manning in there, but they did get their first SEC win since joining the conference. I think Arch Manning had over 300 yards throwing, but Texas kind of looked lackluster in some ways in this game. They allowed 150 yards rushing, so they didn't play great. They still ended up beating Mississippi State by 20 plus, but Mississippi State's terrible. So Texas didn't look great, so I did drop them from 1 to 2, but nothing to really worry about with Texas, but they could have played better. Number 1, Alabama. It's the most impressive win of the college football season. I've got them jumped from 5 to 1. And I don't show favoritism here. It's all about results and your resume. And right now, Alabama has the best resume of any team right now. They jumped out 28-0, and they just looked like the 1994 49ers. They looked amazing. Jalen Milroe, when he is running that ball, he is so fast, and pulling those linemen out, he is really hard to stop. Kirby Smart is one of the best defensive minds in college football, and he was for a loss on what to do with him. He is getting better, Jalen Milroe is, at throwing the football, making good decisions, and Alabama is just a really good football team. Right now, I think they are the best team in the SEC. Now, that being said, they took their foot off the pedal in this game, and it about cost them. Ryan Williams, he's just 17 years old. He is the best receiver in the SEC. This kid's amazing. I was watching him play last night, and he is just he's hard to cover up and hard to contain. But there is some things that Alabama needs to work on. They allowed Carson Beck to throw for over 400 yards last night. They need to get better at their pass defense. They need to shore some of that up. There's some teams that can expose them if they don't fix that. But anyway, needless to say, Alabama still owns Georgia. They looked great. And I have them as the number 1 team right now in my power rankings for week 5. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you listening to me ramble there on for about 15 minutes. But that is my week 5 power rankings for the SEC, and I will talk to you all later.